Man, looking back, the biggest trick he played wasn't a lie about where he was, it was a lie about where we were going. He was a master of relationship stories long, always sketching out this perfect, detailed future. Next year, we'll move to that little cottage by the water. Or, when the market stabilizes, we'll finally start that business together. These weren't just dreams, they were strategic distractions, like big, shiny decoys meant to keep me looking forward instead of noticing the mess right in front of my face. Seriously, if your gut is telling you something is off, watch out for the future faking game. It's when a person talks nonstop about grand plans, but does absolutely zero concrete steps today. For example, he'd send me Zillow links for houses we'd never buy, or talk about our future kids' names, which gave me a rush of hope that made me dismiss the fact he hadn't introduced me to his sister in 3 years. It's a key sign of toxic relationship stories. They promise a reward to keep you trapped, always chasing the carrot they know they'll never let you catch. The painful truth is, those future promises weren't about love, they were about control. He knew that as long as I believed the big payoff was coming, that amazing, perfect life, I'd keep pouring all my energy into him and ignoring the cold, hard reality of our daily life. This future facade made me scared, making me feel stupid for rocking the boat when we had so much to look forward to. But what happens when the future finally arrives and the person standing next to you is still living in the past? It's one thing to see the big lies, but the slow, silent death of the connection is what truly defines toxic relationship stories. I realized he had emotionally checked out completely. I was literally standing right next to him, but I was living alone. Our house felt less like a home and more like an extremely polite shared apartment where I was just the quiet roommate, witnessing his life from the sidelines. That quiet loneliness is a louder signal than any shouting match. This feeling of being a spectator in your own relationship stories long is a deep wound. He'd be scrolling on his phone, making dinner, watching a movie, physically present, but the light in his eyes, that spark that saw me, was gone. A practical tip right now: stop waiting for him to talk. Instead, try talking about a non-controversial event in your day and watch his face. Does he reflect emotion, or is he just waiting for his turn to speak? The lack of authentic reaction is your proof. He wasn't fighting me or arguing, he was just not caring. That neutrality is brutal because it leaves you with nothing to confront. I was trapped trying to reignite a fire he had already let die, while he was busy preserving energy for his real life somewhere else. That emotional distance was the massive neon sign that he had already left the building, even if his shoes were still under my bed. Forget the flowery lies. The real truth always hides in the bank statements. That's where the nastiest toxic relationship stories always expose themselves. I started seeing weird financial shifts, like new credit cards popping up with those vague miscellaneous charges. Not huge amounts, but steady, ongoing expenses I couldn't trace back to our life. When I asked, he'd give these vague excuses about investments or secret work projects that were just total smokescreens. Here's the non-obvious hack. Look past the big purchases and check the small, recurrent ones. A steady, unexplained $50 charge every month to a service you don't recognize is often a hidden subscription or a small payment to keep up parallel life running smoothly. For instance, he suddenly pressured me to cover more of the joint bills, using the excuse that he was saving money for one of our big relationship stories long goals, when really he was just funding his secret second existence without dipping into his main cash flow. Money doesn't lie, even when the person holding it does. The moment your partner starts getting defensive or overly secretive about small transactions, your antenna should be up, sky high. That financial facade is just another wall he builds to keep you out, proving that his priorities and his major spending were definitely not focused on building a future with you. This subtle economic pressure was just another tool in his box of controlled deception. He wasn't just lying to me. He was playing a long game by preconditioning everyone around us, my friends, my family, to see him as the ultimate catch, the hero of our relationship stories long. He did this by being overly charming and helpful to them, setting up a situation where their approval of him became his most powerful shield. He'd bring my mom flowers, help my dad with a chore, always ensuring their view was flawless. This is the sneaky genius of toxic relationship stories. He knew that if I ever tried to talk about my doubts, the first thing I'd hear back was, "But he's so good to us. Are you sure you're not just stressed?" That social approval was the cement that held his facade together. It isolated me, making me feel like I'd be betraying my whole family if I admitted the truth. The narrative wasn't just controlled, it was weaponized against my own support system. The takeaway here, my friend, is critical. Trust your own truth, not the outsourced opinion of your friends, however well-meaning. If the man they see in public is radically different from the man you see behind closed doors, the public man is a performance. Stop seeking their validation and start securing your exit plan. His next move was going to be even more personal, manipulating my deepest hopes and dreams. One of the sneakiest tricks in the book is called mirroring, and he used it to build our fake relationship stories long. He wouldn't just pretend to like my hobbies, he would become them, adopting my dreams and fears to create this intense false feeling that we were soulmates. I'd mention wanting to learn Italian, and suddenly he'd be researching classes with me, only to drop it completely once I was hooked on the shared idea. This is a subtle form of deception common in deep toxic relationship stories because it bypasses logic and hits you right in the heart, making you believe the connection is profound and unique. For instance, if you mention your biggest life goal is to write a book and he suddenly says, "Wow, I've always wanted to do that too." Watch out. This shared passion isn't genuine. It's just bait to make you think no one understands me like he does, guaranteeing your continued emotional investment. It's an exhausting tactic designed to create artificial depth, making the thought of leaving him feel like tearing away a piece of your own identity. But I eventually saw through the performance. He was simply reflecting my light back at me, making me fall in love with a distorted version of myself. That realization was the vital step toward reclaiming my true self, separate from his carefully constructed reflection. As the end got closer, things actually got sloppy, which felt totally weird for someone so careful, right? This is the non-obvious secret. Sometimes people in deep toxic relationship stories start making obvious errors, almost on purpose. It's a calculated subconscious risk. He started leaving his phone unlocked sometimes, or mentioning a detail about his other life that made no sense with our fake relationship stories long. It's like a subconscious desire to be caught, a bizarre test to see how far I'd go in my denial to protect his secrets. It's a bizarre psychological dance. He was pushing the boundaries, maybe hoping I would just ignore the huge clue, or even worse, blame myself for noticing it. For instance, he might leave a cryptic message on the counter, not enough to prove anything, but enough to plant serious doubt. If you see these giant, obvious slip-ups after months of careful control, don't dismiss them as mistakes. They're tests of your blindness, seeing if you're still choosing the lie over the truth. My intuition went from a whisper to a scream when I realized those mistakes weren't mistakes at all. They were him daring me to face the truth he was too cowardly to admit. That moment of reckless exposure, that blatant lack of respect for my intelligence, was what truly stripped away the last of my affection. I knew then that the game was over, and it was my turn to plan the final, definite move. The absolute game changer wasn't gathering the last piece of proof. It was the strategic decision to stop reacting and start planning my exit. The hard reset. I finally understood that in these deep, toxic relationship stories, confrontation is just another loop in the cycle. So I had to disconnect emotionally and financially before I said a word. For example, I quietly opened a new personal bank account and started rerouting my mail, creating a secret safety net that he couldn't touch or track. This is the ultimate secret power move. You must create distance and stability in your own life first. You shouldn't be focused on his confession. You should be focused on your freedom.
I also built a small, trusted circle of friends, my secret support team, who knew the whole truth, asking them for practical help, like a place to crash if I needed it. They weren't there to judge our fake relationship stories long, they were there to hold the door open for my escape. The process of quietly preparing was incredibly empowering. It transformed me from the paranoid victim of his gaslighting to the calm, strategic executive of my own life. That internal shift, that moment you choose silent action over loud desperation, is what guarantees a clean break. The exit isn't just physical, it's a profound mental commitment to never let his manufactured reality become yours again. So listen up. If you've recognized any of these signs, don't wait for permission to be free. Right now, what is the single most important security measure you can take? Open that new account, secure your documents, or tell that trusted friend. Do it today. Take that step to build your fortress of self-worth.